have the shotgun sound on mine. It's not as Dharma Time-y. But anyways, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Dope and Dharma. This is our Dharma Time hour. I am, of course, the Dharma Guy, and that is the Dope Doctor. What's up, man?
Hey, what's happening?
Another day, man. Another day. Although I think this is our first legit Dharma Time of the year, right? I don't remember. I know we did like a combo show earlier to like.
Oh, that's right.
Bring in the year, but
you gotta wait. First. You gotta
oh boy!
Happy birthday, Dharma Guy.
Happy
birthday,
Ray. Yes, I feel very old.
You gotta start off saying happy birthday.
I've been yelled at twice now for that, so yes.
What do you mean?
I just don't really take it. I don't know, man. It's not like a big deal for me. I mean, I don't know.
Well, that's why I posted what I posted.
I'm grateful it happened.
What a big deal it really is.
I'm grateful that it happened.
Birthday, not that big of a deal until you go look at them pictures and see how old we got in just 11 years.
Yeah. Dude, all this gray is definitely snuck up on me, man. And you didn't notice yesterday, but it's half gone, by the way.
You know what? I didn't notice yesterday.
No, you did not. But that's okay. I still feel loved, you know.
Sorry, man.
I cut off literally like a foot of my
I did. You really did, actually.
Yeah, it's like almost all gone right now.
I was like, I noticed it now.
Yeah, and I pissed off like half my house. By the way, like my wife was not happy with it. My kids were not happy with it. So I'm firing on all cylinders today, man. I'm batting 1,000. I'm pissing everybody off.
You just got to go full skin, man.
That's not gonna happen.
For real.
That would piss me off. So I'm good. I haven't had like non-facial hair since in like high school. So
I just want to see what that looks like.
The closest I've ever come was just the soul patch thing there.
Yeah, you had that when I met you.
But anyways, I digress. This is our first show of Dharma Time for the season, I believe. I don't know. If not, we'll just pretend that it is. We've been doing Dope and Dharma on Mondays with the Couch Live at was it? Oh God! See, I always mess this up. I know it's WOKB. It's 1680, right? AM?
1680.
Yeah, 1680 AM. So for those of you who've been tuning in live on that one, they also simulcast through their Facebook page. So you guys have seen us there. We've done, I think, 1 or 2 shows on Fridays. But this is our first Tuesday show, I think. And it's probably going to be a doozy. I think we're going to, it's an interesting topic. So let's just go ahead and jump into it.
Before you do that, happy birthday day to your mom, because she's on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, she's saying I'm in the doghouse for my beard.
So
yeah, and thank you, Mom, for not aborting me. I appreciate that. That was a good decision on your part. Maybe not the best decision with the father, but hey, good decision on not getting rid of me.
I would say good you had a decision.
Yeah, right. But anyways, so interesting topic today. So this is a topic that has been in the news quite a bit lately, and I figured why not. We were originally going to touch on another topic, which maybe we'll do next week or so, but we made an impromptu change because earlier, I think it was last week, on Wednesday, I think it was, my mom's favorite person in the world, Dr. Phil, had a show on pronouns. And I tuned in. Actually, oddly enough, I couldn't watch the live version of it because we had a shooting here in Seminole High School, and it kind of took over the broadcast, so I had to wait for a few days so I can watch the entire program. And I thought it was an interesting show. And then, oddly enough, you, who don't like Dr. Phil, sent me a clip of that particular show, referencing the pronoun discussion and whatnot. And so within a few days, it was all over social media. It was over YouTube. A lot of people were talking about that show. So I figured, okay, maybe we should address it, right? Maybe we should talk about it. So that's what we're talking about today is pronouns. I don't know how...
and just so you know, people, we have not had a conversation about this. I have no idea where this is going to go.
Neither one of us do. I have my thoughts. You have your thoughts.
Past broadcast.
It's been nice knowing everybody. We've been canceled.
Right.
But by all means, if you're watching this and you have some thoughts or opinions, feel free to share them in the comment section there. And if you're listening to this through a podcast, you obviously can't comment live, but feel free to reach out and give us your thoughts, and maybe we'll do a follow-up show if it's necessary. But so anyway, let's just dig in, man. So for those of you who have been living under a rock and don't know what the whole quote-unquote pronoun discussion is, For God, my entire life, it's been, he, she, him, her, that kind of stuff for pronouns. If somebody presents as a male, you would say him. If they present as a female, you would say her. That was kind of what I was raised. It's been that way my entire life. But in the last, I'm gonna be generous and say probably the last decade, the pronoun discussion has started to gain steam, and it's really started to come to a head in the last couple of years. And that is, now there are individuals who prefer other pronouns other than he, she, or they do like they, them. I've heard like Z. There's a litany of pronouns, some of which I think can make some logic sense, and other ones just don't make any sense to me. And maybe that's because I'm not in that world. But there seems to be a major debate right now. There seems to be a major controversy, and it appears as if there's two sides, right? And I don't think it's that simple, but that's what is being portrayed. Is you're either for it or against it, kind of a thing. If you're for it, then you're like, hey, all bets off. People can identify whatever they want to, and we can call them whatever we want. And if you're against it, then you're like, no, I'm going to call you what you were assigned at birth, and that's it. I don't personally think it's quite that simple, but that's what it's being portrayed as, and we're being led to believe, if you're watching media, that there's this major fights in the streets, and it's there's only two sides. I don't personally believe that, but I think that it bears.
You be he.
Yeah, I think it bears discussion. So, you have anything to add to that as we get started? Did I address that well enough?
There for a second, because I thought you were going to say that there really is only two sides to it.
I don't think there is. I think that's how the media is trying to portray it. I think they're.
I do that. No. I like the way you came around there, because I agree with you. I don't think there's just two sides to this situation. Excuse me while I put a Jolly Rancher in my mouth.
Nice.
But I think
it's Radio 101, man. Get some gum in there too.
They're sitting here on my desk.
Sure.
Looking really good. I just drank coffee.
I know. No self-control. I get you. Anyways, I agree with you. I don't think it's as simple as you're all for or all against, right? I guess just immediately get my personal take on it. It's going to come out eventually, so let's just start out with that. I don't personally have a problem with people wanting to choose or prefer a different pronoun to be called by. It doesn't bother me at all. I really don't care. Like, I have other things in my life that garner my attention. So if it's something you prefer, and you prefer the people within your circle to call you by a certain pronoun, hey, man, that's on you. Go for it. It doesn't bother me. What does bother me is when we start to try to say that because you feel a certain way, the rest of us all have to then abide by your individual rules. That's when I start to have a problem with it. Meaning, if you and your inner circle and your friends and family, have all had this discussion, and then they care enough about you to honor your wish to be called, so we don't piss anybody off. Let's just say, G. That's one of the ones I've seen that I've never personally met anybody. Huh?
What was that?
G, I think it is, or there's one that's like XI or something. I don't know. The point is,
probably should have got an expert of that on the show.
Right. But if if you and your family and your friends decide amongst yourselves that that's what you feel inside and that's what you would prefer to be called, and they all agree to call you that, I'm totally cool with that. But if I just came into your life for like a moment, if I'm just hanging out for a moment, or I'm just passing through, to expect me to honor those wishes, I think is a bit much. And then if I don't choose to honor them, or if I don't care enough to participate in that, to then automatically say that I'm some sort of a bad person and I don't like you or whatever, I think it's a bit much. And one of the things I was actually talking to my mother, she's on here now, I was talking to her about the other day, and this is going to sound harsh, and I don't mean it to be that way, but that's just, my way, I guess. I don't care enough about each individual's world as I'm passing through to want to know how you identify. Like if I'm standing in line at Walmart to buy something, I don't care enough about my cashier's life to want to know if I should refer to them as this, that, or the other. I'm here to buy something and I'm going on with my day. It doesn't mean I don't care about you as a human being. Doesn't mean I wish anything bad upon you. It just means like, bro, like you're not on my radar. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, and I'm not trying not to hurt your feelings. I'm just trying to buy. I'm just trying to buy like my Stickers bar and go. You know, I'm not interested in telling you my pronouns, and I'm not interested in hearing yours. Right. And I think that that's a hard thing for people to understand, right? And I refer back to my now, he's soon to be 21, I think. My son, we had this conversation, this dialogue in the house before he moved out. It was years ago now, and we had this like, I'm going to call it a heart-to-heart. He might not refer to that as that, but we had a heart-to-heart. And one of the things I kind of made known to him was, bro, outside of this house, nobody cares, man. Like he was trying to give me this thing about, you know, what's not fair and all these other like things. And I was like, dude, what you're not understanding is outside these doors, nobody gives a shit. They just don't. You know, you might have individuals in your life that you come across that are in your circle that do care, but the world as a whole just doesn't care. They're all trying to get through their day. They're all trying to do their thing, and they're not really concerned with your life that much. And I think that's a hard thing for some of them to understand, right? And it's not. I don't consider that a negative. I just consider that a fact. It's a fact in the sense of if we all care about our fellow man to a point, right? Like, we care about our fellow man to a point in the sense that I'm not going to go out of my way to hurt you. I'm not going to try to infringe upon your way of living. But at the same token, I'm not knocking on all my neighbors' doors to ask them how they identify and ask them what's going on in their lives and things of that nature. I'm just not. And, you know, once again, that doesn't mean I wish them ill. It just means they're not on my radar, and I'm not on theirs. You know, there's not a line of neighbors knocking on my door asking me, you know, how we're feeling today and what I'm going through. It'd be nice, but that's just not the world we live in. And so I think with the pronoun discussion, that's where my problem comes is when if you're telling me that I'm sort of like less than, or I'm mean, or I'm whatever because I don't care enough to worry about your pronouns, that's making a large assumption about who I am and what I care about as a person. You know, it means a lot to you, and that's cool, but to expect it to mean something to me, I think is a bit presumptuous. And so that's where my problem comes in is to demand that everybody just forget what words mean, right? In that show, that the Dr. Phil episode that we're referring to, I personally think that the guy kind of, Matt Walsh, I think is what his name was. I think he put it right in the sense that, you know, that's a how you feel type of situation. And that's okay if that's how you feel, but feelings aren't facts, you know, and I think that that's what we kind of have to keep in mind. You know, if it's something that the rest of your people want to put aside and honor your wishes, that's fine. But to expect the world to change how they think and how they view and how they speak to fit your individual feelings, I think you're going to wind up upset a lot. So I've been talking a lot, so go for it.
Yeah, my entire Jolly Rancher is almost completely
I'm trying to help you out there, man.
Well,
trying to help you out.
Try to suck as hard and fast as possible.
I am not gonna touch that one. Oh, I want to, but anyway, I'm not going to.
So you mentioned something at the top of that whole deal. You said that your inner circle, and I completely agree with that. I think that, to me, and again, I'm not an expert in this whole thing, but I am a loving person. I care about people. Obviously, we help people for a living. So it's not like we're callous, cold people that don't want others to come up.
Sure.
So take that into account and all this. But when someone has a nickname, for instance, like you're the Dharma Guy, I'm the Dope Doctor, it's a nickname. The inner circle using a nickname, whether it be something offensive or not, that's kind of normal the way I grew up. Someone gives you a nickname. You know, I mean, we did it one time on a show. We called the guy Q. He didn't like it. You know, sometimes, you know, you're not going to like the nickname people give you. Sometimes you're going to be okay people give you. But the point is that your inner circle knows that nickname. And the way I view this is similar to kind of that. Like, so if I go outside of this and someone, you know, says, hey, sir, and I look at him, I go, no, that's the Dope Doctor. and so now I view you as a bad person because you didn't call me by my nickname rather than, my birth name. I look at it like this, and it's not to discount the fact that you have felt something, didn't feel right or proper the way you have been identified for all these years, or the way you've been living all these years. So the fact you wanted to be proud of some of the other things going on inside you, and so you want to be addressed as such. I get that, and that's why I think we're saying your inner circle. Your inner circle should get that.
Yeah, I agree, and they should honor that.
As I'm walking down the road, and if I happen to say, "Excuse me, gentlemen," or "Excuse me, ma'am," and I'm wrong, because I don't happen to know that. I don't think that we should get rid of the words he or she or ma'am or gentleman. And I think that's kind of where some people get upset. It's almost like you're not allowed to use those words.
Right.
Like, all those other words for some reason are exclusionary. No.
Yeah.
I don't think calling someone a he or a her, I still want to be referred to as a man. As a matter of fact, I have no issue with that. Now, you want to address me as something else, that's on you. You probably don't. If you're addressing me as anything else other than a man, you just don't know me, and that's cool. You don't care. You just don't know me. If I take issue with that, I need to go up with my therapist and deal with that.
You're hitting on something that I definitely want to make sure we touch on. And I know we're going to circle back around to all this stuff at some point because we got a long show. But the other thing that I hear that really bugs me, and I'm kind of shocked that I haven't heard anybody refute this in any way. It seems to be said, and it's never checked from all the things that I've seen, and it bothers me, and I'm hoping maybe you and I can check it now, and that is, they seem to feel, if I don't refer to them as the pronoun that they feel inside, that somehow I'm denying them as a person.
Right. Or you're homophobic, or
yeah, but they're like,
whatever phobic.
But what I hear a lot though is like, you're denying my existence. I'm allowed to. If you're confusing the let's just keep it real, man. What you're upset about is vocal cords, making vibrations coming out. It has nothing to do with your existence, man. It has to do with what we've, as a civilization, have agreed upon. The meanings of terms and whatnot. It has nothing to do with your existence as a human. And I would argue that if you feel that your existence as a human is so fragile that if that other individual doesn't refer to you as a pronoun that you feel deep down inside, your problem isn't that person referring to you in a pronoun. Right. Your problem is here. You're going to need to get some help to understand how to love yourself and how not to put your value in the hands of everybody around you. Like, your value should be valued regardless. You should value yourself based upon how who you are and how you operate, things of that nature. Because one of the things that people say was, how would you feel if somebody kept referring to you as a wrong? I wouldn't give a shit. I will be honest with you, man. At a point in my life, if somebody just kept calling me she and her, man, I've got so many more things in my life that are so much more important that deserve my time, that if somebody kept referring to me as a she, okay, and once again,
in your circle.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is it wouldn't even be a daily occurrence. This wouldn't be somebody that's in my life. This would just be a random, like I said, a cashier or something, and it's say, hey, she. Matter of fact, actually, I have been referred to as she my entire life. For whatever reason, and my mother's on here who can attest to this, for whatever reason, people have forgotten what the actual term Trinity means, which is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. They forgot the old Western, they call me Trinity, which was about a guy. All they refer to is the Matrix, which is the female in Trinity. And so my entire life, I would get magazines from 16 magazines. I get stuff, even still to this day, I'll get stuff addressed to a Miss Trinity Phillips. And you know what? I don't care. I didn't care then, and I don't care now. And we're talking about like a kid. I was like 16, 17. I was all into viralness and everything else. And I would get something addressed to Miss Trinity, and I didn't care then because it didn't affect who I am. And so that's my thing is it bothers me that it never goes checked in the sense of, hey, wait a minute. If you're saying you don't exist because somebody's referring to you as the wrong pronoun, man, you need to look into that. Like, you shouldn't give that kind of power to another individual. If your sense of self is that fragile, you need to look into that. Like, to go around and expecting the world to care so much about your state of well-being, you're going to end up disappointed a lot. Because a lot of people either A, don't care, or B, are too busy to care. They're busy with their own things, man. They're busy with their own, like Louie's always saying. They're worried about their own zit on their own forehead, or, does this shirt look good on me, or whatever it may be. Like, they're already worried about that kind of stuff. They're not focused on you. And so for me, I think that's a big deal to me. Like, I don't like the fact that it goes unchecked so often. That they try to say I don't exist because you want to refer to me as the wrong pronoun.
Well, I think there's one major issue that has to be talked about here. And I think the fact is that wasn't where your insecurity lied. I mean, as much as everybody, in those ages have some insecurities, that's not where your insecurity lied. Your insecurity didn't lie in whether you were manly enough or female enough.
Sure.
Right? So I think that's of issue here.
And I get it.
Again, we're talking about pronouns are great within your inner circle to be respected. I really do believe that. And I don't
know of anybody that's arguing that, by the way.
Right. No. I know. But I know that wasn't your issue.
No. I'm talking about their viewers in general. From all the things I've heard, I haven't heard anybody who's arguing pronouns in their inner circle. I think everybody's cool with that. From all the people I've seen, even the pro for, the anti.
No.
Have you?
No, let's.
I haven't.
Let's at least. If you're one of those individuals that have a child that wants to be referred as they, for instance,
right,
and you're just refusing to do that, then yeah, you're jerky. You're a jerk off. I mean, seriously, because if that's your child and that's their decision, in the privacy of your home, and just get it, just understand that. And again, it's like a name or it's like a nickname, but obviously this means something very deep with them. There are some issues there. There are some insecurities that have happened, that exist. There's a lot of internal struggle that has existed prior to you even knowing this. So just please be aware of that. And if that's somebody that you care about and love, then you should respect that. I think what we're talking about here is when globally you're no longer to just assume a male or female. Here's what I like. You know that we have a good friend that is, I would say, gender neutral, or I think that's how you say it. This person has taught me some things. I've learned from this individual. I care deeply about this individual. Around this individual, I worked really hard to just try to do that, because that's the way that person feels, and I respect that, and I love that. But that individual also knows that when I accidentally say, "Oh, bro," or "dude," or stuff like that, that I'm not doing that as an attack. I'm not doing that to say I don't value you, or that I somehow want to change you, or don't respect you for who you are here deeply. That's nothing to do with that. It just has to do with, your eyes see a certain thing, and you tend to think a certain thing when you see that.
Sure.
Like if it's cold outside, I'm not, I call it cold. We have arguments all the time where you think it's actually warm. It's cold.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think our feelings get really hurt there. And the reason our feelings get hurt is because there's no insecurities attached with misidentifying temperature. When you misidentify someone's sexual orientation or preference or identity, then that is the issue, meaning that this is a me problem. If I get offended because you want to use the word spick or wetback on me, that's my deal. Truly, that's not your problem. If you choose to use a word like spick or wetback against me, I think you're a jerk and all that, and I won't like you for it. You won't be in my inner circle. But you have a right to do that. Just not around me. But you have a right to do that. I mean, that's your thought. That's your feeling. I can't change you. You know what I mean? But I have to work on me not getting so easily offended by people saying that. And I say this because early on in life, when I didn't understand certain curse words like son of a bitch, I thought they were calling my mom a name.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I tried to explain it to my mom, who, speaks only Spanish at the time pretty much. And she was like, they don't even know me, in Spanish. And it was like, yeah, but these words. And I would get tripped up with words. So words like spick made me get in fights. Words like wetback made me get in fights. Words like, we know the gender attack kind of names that the kids, little boys say to each other. Those would make me fight really quick.
Sure.
You know what I mean? We all fought for those words. But you have to mature from that. I think the real lesson in all this is let's mature that a word is just a word that person ran out of all other options. That other person either doesn't care enough to try to to make me feel a certain type of way, or they ran out of all of their options and they know that word is going to damage me.
Right.
See, I shrink my button so you can't press my button.
Well, even in that,
hide my button so you can't press my button.
Well, even in that situation, they might not see that as a put down either, though. Well, that's the thing.
I'm saying if you're from a society that you know there's a great deal of people that are just not going along with that, then I think that's an internal issue. You got to feel secure in that.
Yeah.
If you feel 100% secure in that that's who you are, it shouldn't matter what the rest of us say. It really shouldn't. It shouldn't matter that we're racist. It shouldn't matter that we're sexist. It shouldn't matter that we're jerks. It shouldn't matter that we're volatile. None of that. Just take us out of your circle. And I've done that in my life for my particular insecurities and issues.
Right.
And I think just a healthy way to move forward. But again, I do want to respect people within my inner circle if they feel that way. So it's one of those things that I agree with you from the top of the hour when you said that there's much more middle here. We are the middle, rather than two poles. One, you have to do this, and there is no such definition of man. There's no such definition of woman. And the other side saying, no, you were born that way, and that's the way I'm going to address you regardless. And I don't care what you say. There is a middle.
Yeah, well, as an example, right, and not to, it's not a one for one example here, but it gives the point. So back in the day when I used to ride motorcycles a lot, we used to have little groups that we would all hang out with, and everybody had their own little nicknames and stuff. I used to ride with a guy named Smooth. I rode with another dude named Squirrel. Everybody just had names for whatever reason. And there was a guy that I met, and I knew his real name. Like when I was first introduced, I knew his name. But then he tried to walk around, and he wanted everybody to call him Knowledge. I took exception to that. Me personally. I didn't like the idea of calling another grown man Knowledge. It just bothered me for whatever reason, and I can argue to this day if it was right or wrong or whatever. It doesn't matter. At that point in my life, who I was and where I was at, and we're talking 20 years ago, I just was uncomfortable calling another man Knowledge. I just wasn't going to refer to him as that. And so I called him by his actual name. And then, long story short, we don't hang out anymore. And that's part of it. And do I think that was the reason why we don't know? I just think we were in different circles. We were never like tight friends anyways. I rode with him a few times. But the few times I was around him, the idea of calling another man Knowledge just didn't sit right with me. So I never pursued like a real friendship with that person, because I just didn't want to do that. And I think that was my prerogative. It doesn't mean that I think anything less of him or whatever. I have no clue the story behind it, and I didn't really want to know the story behind it. I just knew that I wasn't going to do that. But the people in his inner circle did. And I still called the other guy, the guy Smooth. I'm still friends with him to this day, and I still call him Smooth. That's just how I met him. That's how I've known him. I know his real name, but it didn't bother me because he was kind of smooth sometimes, so it didn't bother me.
Parents do that all the time. Parents call a lot of times. How often have you met a guy where the parents call them a complete different name than anybody else? If your name is Richard, but you go by Ricky, but only your mom calls you Richard. Like my mom says Luis Alfonso. She's the only person other than some other family members who go Luis Alfonso. Nobody calls me Luis Alfonso. They all call me Louis. Sure. Right?
Yeah.
It is. There are people that care about you and love you that want to call you what they want to call you.
Sure.
And you have to gauge whether they're really doing that to attack you, to hurt you, or is it simply the fact that that's how they feel comfortable, and is it really that big of a deal?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's how I can usually gauge.
For you, but is it that big of a deal for them? I don't know. You have to have that conversation with them.
That's actually how I can usually gauge if somebody really knows you or not, by the way. When somebody's talking to me, if we're out wherever and somebody's talking to me about you or asking something about you, I can always tell how close they are as far as how they refer to you as. So if they call you Lewis, I'm like, you don't really know him that well, do you? Like, if they start trying to talk to me like, oh, yeah, it was like, but you're calling him Lewis, that tells me immediately right there, you're probably not as close as you think you are, bro. Right. But anyways,
I went to a funeral for a friend, man, that I knew for years, man. We were in the music business together. He was in our group. We traveled together, and this guy ends up having like 3 different names. I knew him by one name, and then I knew he had a professional name,
right.
And then the family members would call him another name, and I was like, wow, this dude, I didn't know
That's
this guy
crazy.
at all. I didn't know this.
Marissa has a Marissa has a comment here. She said, I think this is referring back to the they comment that you made about the kid. She said, but what age should the child be able to make that decision? I don't think they understand the concept during an age where one day they can identify as the opposite sex and the next identify as a unicorn. And before we answer that, I will say though that is another frustration that I have as a parent, right? And I never thought when I found out that I was having kids that I would have to address this one day. Like it never occurred to me that this was going to be a problem, right? But as my kids are getting older, and my youngest now is 10, and my one up from that is 12, and then I've of course got 17 and 20 something. But I've noticed with my 10 and my 12-year-old, I'm dealing with things that it never occurred to me that were going to come up. And what appears to me right now, and it's bothersome to me for a multitude of reasons, probably none of which people automatically assume, but it's like with the social media and the TikTok and all these other things, they're giving voice to a lot of people that haven't, in my eyes, earned the right to have that voice, right? We all deserve to have a voice, but the amount of people that you can influence with that voice, I think, should be earned. I think you should do something to achieve those kind of accolades, I guess. And it appears that at the moment there's a lot of people who I don't feel deserve to have the authority or the influence that they do. And so what that's done is it's increased our children's circle of influence, right? When I was a kid, my circle of influence was my mom, my family, my neighborhood. But now our kids' circle of influence is the world and everybody in it. As long as you have an internet connection, you could be an influencer, whether you are what we would consider a good person or not. And what I'm noticing now, and I've had these discussions with my children, that regardless of how they personally feel inside, they're being confused and they're questioning things. And some of that questioning is normal and some of the questioning is not so normal. And how I can gauge when it's not so normal is the verbiage that they use. There's certain verbiage that you expect out of your kid when they're 10, 11, 12 years old that you know is their words. And then there's words that they'll say that sounds like an adult word. That sounds like a word that you heard from somebody. And a lot of times they're coming to me and the questions and the comments that they're having, the discussions that we're having, it's because they're being led to believe now in the mainstream that you're only, like when I was a kid, and I'm not saying this was right, but when I was a kid, if you were gay, you were uncool. Like that was like the worst insult you could call somebody. And thankfully we've moved far beyond that these days, right? However, what's being put out there is you're not cool now unless you are gay or you are trans. That's what's kind of like, that's the impression that the children are getting. And I'm not saying that as my perspective. I'm saying that as somebody who's dealing with this and talking to my kids and talking to their friends and listening to them discuss things. There's a huge percentage of children these days who are walking around thinking you're only cool if you're trans or you're gay. And that to me is a problem. And it's not a problem if they are or aren't. It's just at like 8, 9, 10 years old, I think you get your whole life to worry about those types of subjects. I think that until you're in a position where you have to make those kinds of decisions, why? Why focus so much attention on sexuality when you could focus on just being a kid? And I think the reason why that's happening isn't because of an internal dialogue. I think it's happening because the things that they're exposed to are making them look into stuff that they normally wouldn't have looked into. If that makes sense, right? So in other words, I'm not trying to trivialize the plight of the person who says that they've known since they were a kid that they were different and they felt different or whatever. I'm not trying to trivialize the plight of that person. But what I am trying to bring attention to is what about the normal, average, everyday kid that's having things put on them that are causing them to question stuff that they normally wouldn't have questioned. That's where I start to take issue. And I think that is a problem, and I don't know the solution to that one. I don't know how deep it goes. But I also think that that's part of the pronoun discussion, because another thing that came up on that particular show was there's a movement at the moment where they're trying to limit the amount of curriculum that includes the pronoun discussion within schools. That one I'm kind of all for. And for my own reasons, I don't think that the school is the place to be teaching pronouns and sexuality and things of that nature. I don't think that that's the appropriate forum to have that. I think that that's a personal thing that with your family and whatnot. But that's part of the problem at the moment. Is it feels to me as if some of the stuff is getting like we've talked about this a lot about the pendulum, right? When we were younger, the pendulum was way too far over here. I mean, you had things like Matthew Shepard. You had all these horrible, atrocious things happening to humans that just should never happen for any reason, let alone those stupid reasons. But then it feels like the pendulum has swung so far now to where now you're glorifying or you're bringing attention to things that you're not necessarily equipped to bring attention to. And it's causing more problems than you're aware of. It's like last night we talked about, the overtime rules, right? Like you're in the middle of this emotional thing and you're like, well, change the rules because, I want to see them get a chance, but you're not thinking of the long-term effects. And it feels to me that that's kind of what's happening with the pendulum swinging is we spent so much time, oppressing certain individuals that now we want to be so inclusive that we're not really using logic and reasoning anymore. We're just emotionally reacting to stuff, not realizing what it's causing. What are your thoughts?
A lot.
Yeah, it's a big one. I know.
Yeah. Well, first my thoughts go to, as a counselor, I always try to help people with their trauma, whatever trauma that was. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people have experienced a great trauma, and I think there's a big difference between genetics and preference by trauma. And I don't think that conversation is had enough.
No. Matter of fact, if you even say that, you're canceled.
Yeah, because I don't think that's a black and white issue. I don't like that we're just, just to assume that everything I like or enjoy is because I was born that way. That's absolutely not true. I mean, I can go into my history, and because of the trauma that I experienced, I can pinpoint, finally, when I finally was able to identify a certain trauma that happened to me, I was able to identify why I preferred older women than younger women.
Right.
I mean, it made sense. I was able to figure out, or at least identify, why I was so promiscuous without any emotional attachment. I was able to identify that by being open and honest in sifting through trauma. Well, if we then say sexual identity is not part of those things, in other words, sexual identity must always be by birth and never by trauma, then I think we're doing some injustice to some individuals that are really struggling.
I agree.
And I think that's why there's no right answer for everyone.
No.
There's no right way to identify for everyone. I think that we need to be very cautious when we so quickly want to change things globally because somebody has experienced some wrongdoing. And clearly, there's a lot of individuals that the reason this is such a hot topic is because they've experienced some wrongdoing.
Yeah.
But I think we need to proceed with caution because, I mean, like when you tell me that about very young, I don't have very young children. So my children were gone out of school by the time that happened. But I do remember, which I thought it was really cool, but it was interesting, that when I would go to football games with my oldest, we would go to all the football games. And I remember saying, wow, man, there's a lot of open female-to-female activity in your school. I never experienced that in a school. You know what I mean? That was very different from my generation.
Same here.
Yeah, it's very common. And it's like, wow, man, that's really cool that they're not experiencing that same limited ability to express or trauma maybe so many other people had experienced in our generation. You know what I mean? But then to hear you say it's very much like mental health issues, which both of us do take issue with it, that you're not cool unless you suffer depression, understand it deeply, or suffer anxiety and understand that deeply, and your anxiety is not as bad as mine.
I hear 8-year-olds talking about anxiety disorders.
You haven't had panic attacks. I've had panic attacks, and I'm a cutterer. I have an eating disorder. I have a drug problem. All these. Listen, save the diagnostic stuff for the therapeutic environment.
Yes.
And you therapists out there that are trying to globally blanket everybody, you might be in this field because of your own stuff.
Yeah.
And your own issues. And maybe you're just overstretching here. Because the world doesn't need to change for me at all. for me to feel content and happy and joyous and loved at all.
Yeah.
And that is when we got in this field of helping people, we knew that we were going to help people that were going to return to an environment that was not supportive.
Yeah.
Not supportive. So when did we as counselors and therapists and the helping profession start saying, well, then the world is wrong.
Yeah.
You're 100% okay. You don't have to process it at all. That is who you are. And the world needs to change for you. Now, mind you, if that's true, then for the people that are just assholes, can say, well, that's just who I am.
Exactly.
And the world has to accept me as being an asshole. I'm just that way. You will not accept that person because the proof is in the pudding right now.
Yeah.
You don't accept the person that's rigid and will not identify you by the pronouns you've chosen and you identify with. You're mad at the people that think differently than you and don't accept you for who you say that you are. They just refuse to do that. You're offended and distance yourself from the people who think differently than you.
Yep.
So are you accepting? No. You're not accepting either. And now we just have this battle of two sides that are just not accepting of each other. Both think they're completely right. And so where do we go from here? How do we grow? How are you going to feel better with your life when you are good and secure in your situation? And like we said at the top, and we'll repeat it again, your inner circle is what's valued more.
Yep.
My inner circle matters much, much more than any outer ring.
Pretty much.
I am more offended when my inner circle offends me. I'm much more offended. I mean, it doesn't matter what they say. Anything my inner circle says, that's a lot more.
True.
You know, but like someone just out there flicking me off, that never makes my heart hurt.
Right.
But if Dana would flick me off, that just wouldn't make me laugh initially, but that would just stay in my mind like all day. Like,
like, why was that? What'd you do that for?
What was that about?
Yeah, exactly.
I would like really have to know what the hell was that?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well, and the other thing, back to the point earlier about the influence, that's a very real thing that I don't think people want to acknowledge sometimes. And the reason why some of us have a problem with how glorified it is. Like, there's a whole subset right now. Like, I caught my daughter watching, like, the TikToks that are glorifying mental health issues as if they're, like, cool to have. Like, they were cutters, and they were proud of it. They were bragging about having to go into the mental hospital and stuff. And we as adults hear that, and we immediately like, whoa, that doesn't seem right. But as like an 8-year-old, a 9-year-old who sees this stuff out there, and you're told, well, these people are important. They've got 1 million views. Like that's what gives you validity these days. So if they've got this many views, they must be cool. So I need to have this. And so they're trying to emulate those things. And, and as much as we as parents try to limit the exposure that the kids have, good luck. It's extremely hard to minimize the amount of exposure they have. But my point in all that was it's very real. I don't remember. You'll probably remember this. There's an actual name for it. It's a something effect, I believe. But there's a reason why, like, for instance, if there's a suicide in a certain area and it's talked about on the news, then the suicides in that area go up, right? And there's a reason why now media and stuff, they don't necessarily cover it the way they used to like 20, 30 years ago because they've learned that there's a spike. So, like, as much as we want to pretend that we're these islands and we're not, this is just who I... No, man. We're affected by everything around us. Everything you think... Yeah. Everything you think you like, everything you think is just you. No, that's a result of things that you've seen or gone through, right? And so if we're exposing all these kids and everything else to certain things, if you think that you're not affecting who they're going to be, you're wrong. And that's what I'm just trying to pump the brakes a little bit and say, hey, man, like, let's let them be kids. If my kid, my daughter came up to me and told me she was questioning certain things, I said, you know what, baby, the cool part is you don't have to worry about that right now. You got your whole life. You're so young, just be a kid. Wait till you get older when you have to make that decision, right? Like, I'm not going to call myself a millionaire until I got $1 million in the bank. So you can't call yourself straight, gay, he, she. You can't. if you're not having sex with anybody, then you're nothing yet. You're not any of those things. You're just a kid who may or may not, be attracted to many different things. Look at the Kinsey report. It's a spectrum, I can tell you, Brad Pitt, that's a sexy dude, man. Doesn't mean I'm gay, but I can say he's an attractive male. I think everybody liked Prince back in the day. He was basically the most feminine dude out there. My point is, as adults, we can wrap our heads around that and understand the difference between sexual attraction and just acknowledging the beauty in something. But as an 8-year-old, maybe not so much. And so we have to worry about what we're putting out there, man. I think that's where a lot of people are coming from and why we don't, I don't want the school teaching my children about sexuality as far as personal preferences, who they identify at. I don't want the school doing that. I don't think the school is qualified. I don't think teacher AB who graduated with maybe, C's in school to teach history, talking to my kids about what they identify as, because I don't trust them to be qualified, nor do I trust them to put their own personal stuff aside to have a discussion. Thirdly, that's not their job. Their job is to teach English. I send my kids to go to school reading, writing, and arithmetic. And maybe, just maybe, that's why some of our scores and stuff aren't what they used to be, because they're so worried now about political issues and things of that nature, as opposed to just sticking to let's teach the kids stuff. All right? Go ahead. I know you had something.
No. You had me thinking about, the teachers and stuff like that, and if they were the ones, and, clearly in... that whole system, the school system to me is just one of the worst.
It's broken. Broken.
So it's got its own issues in regards to what they teach, how they teach. They focus on testing. They're not focused on. There's so many other issues.
Yeah.
That when they start getting into social issues, then we are a country of respecting everybody's thought process. We really are.
It's supposed to.
A lot of religious issues. That's what attracted people to this country. I think we forget. Just how different each household is. So, I'm thinking about that word normal you said earlier. You kind of just threw it out there, normal. And I'm thinking,
but there is no normal.
There's somebody out there that's offended by that.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're like, well, what is normal? Well, mathematically, when we talk a median and means, that's average, those kinds of words. Yeah. In math, there is an understanding of what's in the middle.
Sure.
So you have to accept that math exists. You just have to.
Yep.
Median, means, average, normal. When people say that, that's what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Median, mean, average. Those kinds of things. Now, do I feel like I'm normal? Absolutely not. Do I want to be normal? Absolutely not. But it was the sense of not yet understanding that and being secure in myself early on where that did bother me. Where my house was, to me, in my view, in my opinion, abnormal. Now, it may not have been in my brother's view. It may not have been in my mother's view. It may not have been in my father's view. It was in my view. Was I wrong? Was I right? Well, whatever. The fact is the only reason I'm sitting here today and am able to help the countless numbers of people today and be sober today and do all the things that I do today is because I had to deal with myself, the insecurities in myself, and again, I think that is truly the key that keeps getting missed. That is truly the key that we ignore when we're so busy telling you how to think of me, how to feel about me, you how to speak to me, you how to address me, you how to talk to me, you how to promote me, you how to pay me, you how to do everything to me. If I focus on all those issues about how you interact with me, then I don't work on me. I just sit here and look at all the horrible things about me that put me in little subgroups that can get me more pity, more attention, because there used to be a day where we would call people negative attention seeking. When is the last time? Seriously, it's probably when you used to hear sticks and stones will break my bones, words will never hurt you. When is the last time you've heard someone call a child negative attention seeking?
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's been a long time.
You know why?
We're not allowed to anymore?
We're not. Because those same people that would say that child is negative attention seeking is now saying not only are those feelings valid, but because they come from some sort of identifiable issue that they call traumatic. Doesn't even need to be really traumatic. They call traumatic. They call problematic. Then we have to accept that that's their feeling.
Yep.
So we changed the terms and changed the words and thought we were doing good and thought we were committing some sort of justice. But what we did is, unfortunately, create some sort of confusion in that younger person to believe that all voices not only should be heard, and they have a right to be heard, but that everybody should believe in what they say.
Yeah.
Now, I do believe all voices should be spoken.
Yeah.
But you do not have the right to be heard.
Yeah.
You have the right to speak. I have the right to not listen. And that has to be okay.
Yeah.
You know, and so if we're going to have a lot of conversations about it's okay to not feel okay, well, then you better really understand what that really means. Because if it's okay to not feel okay, then it's got to be okay to not be looked at as okay and thought of as okay and felt as okay and treated okay. It's got to be okay.
Exactly.
Because what matters is how you treat yourself. Are you drowning those emotions with alcohol? Are you hiding from your fears with mood-altering substances? Are you hiding your insecurities and sense of self through promiscuous activity? Are you trying to gain others' attention by becoming highly sexual? Are you so angry and unable to forgive somebody and can't deal with forgiveness that you become volatile? Look, at the end of the day, you're going to have to pay for whatever behaviors you throw out there. And a judge, I'm sorry, but a judge, the therapist can say whatever. The teacher can say whatever. The community and your social network on your social media can say whatever. But when you're in front of that judge and you say, no, judge, you don't understand. The reason I did this is. That judge's going to say, but you did it.
Exactly.
You did it. And as many people that can say and make the linear equation between that instance and that end result behavior, there's just as many people that had that same situation and didn't exhibit that exact same behavior or thought process. So that is what you have to truly understand.
That was a mic drop. How do we follow that up? I'm going to count that as your wrap up because we're almost done anyways.
Okay, well then wrap up the pronoun thing specific because I want people to truly understand.
Well, go ahead. If you got something more, go.
Right, I do. Like, it's not that we don't love you and we don't respect your pronoun. Because
there you go. You're already in trouble.
I want to respect how you want to be identified. But you know who I want to respect and how you want to be identified? The people that are close to me. Other than that, I want you to also respect that when I say the word man, I do have an image and a thought of what that is. There is a definition in my head of what man is. There is a definition in my head of what female is. And there is now a newer definition of what some other terms are that you have gifted me with that knowledge. But please understand, I don't know how the future is going to be and if it's going to be so widespread that everybody's going to have this complete different language and no definition of words are really going to have a definition and every definition is going to be fluid. I don't know. All I know is where I'm at today. If you're in my inner circle, you know I love you and I care about you. And if you choose to make me aware of something, I will identify you how you choose to be addressed. For those of you that refuse to bend or alter yourself when someone's close to you in your circle, that's on you. You know, maybe you just need a little bit more time, a little bit more understanding. I don't know. But if you're out there and you just want the whole world to change now or else they're all a bunch of bad people, please understand, no, we're not. We just have a right to just not give as much care about it as you do. That's your issue. I care about certain issues like addiction. Guess what? Other people just don't. And that's okay. And that's it.
Right on. Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to pretty much echo that whole sentiment. I guess before we do my wrap up, once again, thank you everybody for tuning in. As always, you can check us live here on Tuesdays and Fridays on Facebook.com/WPSN99. We're under Dope and Dharma, but sometimes if you look up Dope and Dharma, it gives you a warning and won't let us look at us. So if you go directly to Facebook.com/WPSN99, you can catch us live, or you can look up Dope and Dharma. You can look up The Couch Live, and you can look up Dharma Time in any of your podcasting platforms. Having said that, for my wrap up, I'm going to just echo what he said, and that is, when it comes to pronouns, the side who's choosing to change pronouns or to alter them, or if it means something to you, I get it. I understand that, and I understand that, as he pointed out, there's a story there. There's a reason for it, and by all means, I want you to feel free to express that story. And if you're in my inner circle, I have no problem, accommodating that. It doesn't mean that I'm better than anybody else. It just means I'm at that point in my life where I get it and I'm willing to listen. Not everybody's there yet. Some people are raised a different way. Some people haven't had it explained to them in the way that they understand it. Yelling at them, ridiculing them, calling them, haters is not going to make them any more willing to listen. And you got to approach them with the same kind of loving tenderness that you want people to approach you with. And then for the other side of things, you got to understand, some people have been through a different story. Some people view things differently than you, and they're going to want to be defined as something else, and it means something to them. And if you want to be in their inner circle and they mean something to you, do your best to respect that and understand that it might not be important to you, but it is important to them. And my last thing I would say is, if you're in a position in your life where your sense of self-worth or your sense of value is dependent upon somebody else respecting your wishes on what they refer to you as, that's dangerous. You're setting yourself up for a pretty big letdown. You need to look inward and figure out what it is that's causing your button to be so big to where everything that they do touches it and sets you off. You need to work on making your button just a little bit smaller and understanding that the world doesn't revolve around you, and that's okay. So, anyways, I think that's all I got. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. And till next time, peace. Are you still here? What are you doing? I told you, go do better.